Welcome to episode 23, Logging and Monitoring Essentials for E1, where we focus on how records of activity create credibility you can verify. Logging is the memory of your environment, and monitoring is the habit of paying attention to that memory while it still matters. Without records, even strong controls are hard to trust because there is no way to prove what happened, when it happened, and who was involved. With records, investigations move from speculation to sequence, and assurance stops being a promise and becomes evidence. Imagine two identical incidents, one with clear logs and alerts, the other with gaps and delays. The first closes with learning and confidence, the second lingers with doubt. E1 favors what can be demonstrated repeatably, so logging and monitoring must be intentional, consistent, and tied to accountability. The aim is simple: make important activity visible, make visibility durable, and make durable visibility actionable before harm compounds.
Authentication and access logs record who tried to enter, who succeeded, and how they proved identity. These records cover user portals, virtual private network gateways, directory services, and privileged access tools, and they link a person or service account to a session. This matters because many incidents start with stolen or misused credentials, and access logs are the fastest way to confirm scope. For example, if a password is phished, you can check whether the attacker ever established a session, from where, and for how long. Retain both successful and failed attempts, since failures reveal guessing and reconnaissance. Tie each entry to the tenant, the application, and the factor used so you can evaluate assurance strength as well as outcome. In E1, retaining these logs is not optional. It is the backbone of identity accountability. Administrative actions must be tracked and reviewed because they change how systems behave. These logs include configuration modifications, account creations, policy edits, elevation events, and software deployments, any step that can widen or narrow risk. The value is twofold. They deter misuse through transparency, and they accelerate recovery by showing exactly what changed. Imagine a misconfiguration that opens a service to the internet. An admin action log pinpoints the rule, the approver, and the time. Regular review turns a static ledger into an operational control, catching anomalies like after-hours changes or repeated rollbacks that indicate instability. Pair action logs with named administrative accounts and short-lived elevation so the record ties to a real person and a defined window. In E1, this is proof that power is governed, not guessed at. Endpoint detection and response, named fully here and then called EDR, generates high-value telemetry from the places attackers land first. Integrating EDR with your central platform ensures that suspicious processes, file modifications, lateral movement attempts, and isolation events appear alongside network and identity data. This matters because endpoints often show symptoms before perimeter tools do. For example, a script spawning from a document reader may never hit a firewall, but EDR will flag it within seconds. Forward events reliably include host identity and user session context, and verify that agents are healthy and reporting. Tune noisy detections so analysts are not overwhelmed, and route critical alerts to responders with clear playbooks. In E1, integration demonstrates complete coverage rather than a patchwork of unconnected consoles. Domain name system, stated once in full, and then DNS. Resolver logs reveal where systems try to go on the internet and which names are being resolved internally. They are invaluable for spotting command and control patterns, typo squatting, and data exfiltration disguised as lookups. Consider a workstation that begins querying a rare domain at regular intervals after a phishing event. DNS logs illuminate that path quickly. Centralize these records, attach client identifiers, and retain enough detail to reconstruct sequences. If using protective resolvers, capture which queries were blocked and why to guide cleanup and tuning. In I1, resolver logging complements firewall and proxy data, filling in the gaps when traffic is encrypted or routes are indirect. It is the map beneath the roads.
Application logs, especially errors and transactions, show how business processes behave and where they fail. They document user actions, request outcomes, and exceptions that point to bugs or abuse. This matters because many incidents manifest as application problems first: unusual error rates, unexpected payloads, or authorization denials in volume. For example, a spike in failed payment attempts with uniform timing may indicate scripted testing of stolen cards.
Include request identifiers, user or service identity, and environmental context so events can be traced end-to-end. Guard against sensitive data in logs by redacting secrets while keeping enough detail for diagnosis. In E1, application telemetry bridges the gap between infrastructure events and business impact, which is where leadership attention naturally resides. Alerting rules must be tuned to risk so that real signals rise above routine noise. Start with threats that matter most: identity misuse, boundary violations, malware execution, and integrity changes, and define patterns that indicate urgency. This matters because teams learn to ignore floods of low-value alerts and true problems hide underneath. For example, an alert on repeated administrative logins from new geographies within a short window deserves priority action. Calibrate thresholds, add suppression for expected maintenance windows, and pair each alert with a recommended first step. Revisit rules after incidents and tests to capture lessons learned. In E1, tuning is not a one-time task. It is the craft that keeps attention aligned to consequence. Incident routing and on-call coverage ensure that when an alert fires, a capable human sees it and knows what to do. Define who responds, how they are contacted, and what happens if the first person does not answer. This matters because minutes count and ambiguity wastes them. For example, route identity anomalies to the access team and endpoint outbreaks to desktop engineering while keeping security operations in the loop. Maintain escalation ladders, after-hours rotations, and backup contacts, and test them with scheduled drills. Track acknowledgement and resolution times so you can improve. In E1, coverage is a service commitment. If monitoring is the smoke detector, routing is the phone line to the fire department that is always staffed. Retention aligned to requirements balances investigative need, legal obligations, storage cost, and privacy expectations. Decide how long each log type is kept, where it is stored, and how integrity is maintained. This matters because some events are only understood weeks or months later, and short retention erases the trail. For example, keep authentication and administrative logs longer than ephemeral debug traces, and protect them with write-once settings or hash-based verification. Document the rationale, apply the settings across systems, and review them when regulations or risks change. In E1, retention is part of governance, not an afterthought, and alignment shows that the organization treats evidence like any other controlled asset. Evidence for this domain includes exports that show real entries, tickets that prove action, and playbooks that explain how decisions are made. Exports demonstrate that data exists and is readable. Tickets connect alerts to response and closure. Playbooks show that responders follow a practiced path rather than improvising under stress. For example, pair a sample failed login surge with the incident record that led to account lock and user outreach, and attach the runbook page used by the on-call analyst. Capture screenshots of key configurations like time settings, forwarding rules, and alert thresholds. In E1, the best evidence tells a complete story from detection to decision to resolution, anchored by artifacts anyone can verify. Dashboards reviewed at a set cadence transform raw telemetry into shared understanding. They should present trends in authentication failures, high-severity vulnerabilities on endpoints, boundary denials, EDR detections, and incident response times. This matters because regular review turns monitoring into management, allowing leaders to spot drift before it becomes failure. Hold short, predictable sessions, weekly for operations, monthly for leadership, where owners explain outliers and commit to adjustments. Keep visuals simple, label sources, and note any gaps or caveats. Archive snapshots so progress is visible over time. In E1, cadence proves that attention is not episodic. It is built into the rhythm of work, and that rhythm drives steady improvement. Timely detection and response are the practical outcomes when logging is complete, clocks agree, alerts are meaningful, and people are ready. In that state, small anomalies become early warnings instead of late surprises, and investigations run on rails late in advance. The organization learns faster because evidence is at hand, and it communicates more clearly because records are trustworthy. E1 rewards this posture not as a checklist, but as a habit you can demonstrate on any day in any audit window without scrambling. The principle is simple and durable. See what matters, keep what you see, route it to someone accountable, and act before the problem grows. Over time, this becomes culture, and culture is the strongest control of all.